Universal Studios Hollywood is one of the world's most well-known film studios. Located in the San Fernando Valley in LA, California, this real working movie studio, along with its theme park of state-of-the-art, cutting-edge attractions, has brought many thrills to the many theme park guests who attend each year. On the film studio side, Universal has some of the most iconic sound stages and backlots that are utilized daily and featured in some of the most iconic, award-winning feature films. Besides film production, Universal Studios Hollywood also plays host to many TV, film, music videos, commercials, and more since it opened for business many decades ago. On the theme park side of things, Universal Studios offers up some of the most epic high-tech attractions in the world, putting park guests right in the middle of all the action. People from around the world come and enjoy what Universal has to offer. However, there was a time when Universal's offerings were a bit more modest, and in fact, the theme park element of the studio would come much later. With its humble beginnings as a movie studio, and the later addition of what would become its world-famous backlot studio Tram tour, we'll take a look at how it all came together to create what is known as the entertainment capital of LA. It's all here on this episode of Bry Adventures, the history of Universal Studios Hollywood. I'm Armand, and like you, I enjoy a good adventure. Fun, fantastic, and magical journeys await. So sit back as I take a new excursion forward on this episode of Bry Adventures. Carl Laemmle was born in Germany on January 17, 1867. In 1884, when he was 17 years old, he made the journey to the United States, where he took up residence in Chicago. Laemmle worked several jobs, and some years later had ideas to go into business for himself. He went on to open one of the first motion picture theaters where he lived in Chicago. After living in Chicago for a while, Laemmle made the move to New York, where he started getting even more involved in the motion picture business. The East Coast, specifically New York, was home to filmmaking in those early days. It was here that Laemmle started the Independent Moving Pictures Company, better known as IMP. IMP, along with some other smaller companies, merged together to form Universal Film Manufacturing Company. Laemmle would preside over the company, serving as its president. As more filmmakers started producing films on the West Coast, Carl Laemmle's film company followed suit, and it too would find itself out on the West Coast in California. As his film company evolved over several years, Laemmle founded Universal City, where eventually Universal Studios would reside. In 1914, a 230-acre lot of farmland was purchased by Carl Laemmle. By this time, Laemmle had been involved in many film ventures over the years leading up to this purchase of land. On March 15, 1915, Laemmle celebrated the grand opening of what would eventually be known as Universal Studios Hollywood. Thousands of people were in attendance, and shortly after, for the price of admission, 25 cents, the general public would be able to see just how filmmaking was produced on the Universal lot, complete with an included boxed lunch. Universal produced a couple hundred films just in the first year alone. The films, at that time, were silent, so the onlookers during filming didn't get in the way of the production process and could cheer on without worry. However, that would all change years later with the advent of sound pictures known as talkies. The films from this point on would include sound, and because of that, the public wasn't allowed to watch the filmmaking process as they once did only several years earlier in the silent film era. In July of 1964, the public would once again be allowed back onto the Universal lot. This time, they would experience the movie magic via trams. Universal's glamour trams, as they were called, would take guests around the lot to experience many film sets and street sets used in various film productions, along with seeing and experiencing several other attractions along the way, as the years progressed. In those early years, this is how guests to Universal Studios would experience attractions. This would also be the early beginnings of what would eventually become Universal's expanded theme park. By the late 1960s, guests to the studios were not able to visit the sound stages as much via the Tram Tour, so Universal came up with some attractions and experiences the Tram Tour guests could experience along the way. These attractions were designed specifically for the Tram Tour guests, and some of these attractions and experiences along the tram route found themselves in feature films as well over the years. In 1968, Universal implemented the now classic Flash Flood set. It was the first special effects set created for the Tram Tour.
Ladies and gentlemen, Old Mexico just ahead. There's a 50-50 chance of rain today, not too much to worry about. Ladies and gentlemen, do you hear that? Watch your cameras off to the right side there! It's a flash flood! That's 40,000 gallons of water coming down the side of the hill. The water will disappear underneath the bridge and then it's returned to the top of the hill.
The set of the Flash Flood was one of the Tram Tour experiences that would find its way into several movies over the years. With the popularity of the Flash Flood set, Universal started to add more experiences to the tour. In 1973, the Parting of the Red Sea attraction was added to the Tram Tour route. A year later, in 1974, the Rock Slide experience was added, only to be replaced several years later in 1979 by the Battlestar Galactica attraction, in which the tram drove through its show building.
Lasers ready.
The Battle of Galactica has begun. Where are the humans?
They are on the Universal Studios tour at the collapsing bridge and suspect nothing.
We will capture them.
In the doomed glacier expedition.
The Battle of Galactica has begun. At the Universal Studios tour.
Also debuting in 1974 was the Collapsing Bridge set, in which the trams would traverse over only to get stuck on the bridge, which was part of the attraction's thrill. The bridge would drop down just a bit as the tram would then continue on. In 1975, tram riders would come face to face with a frightening new attraction along the tram route. It was the runaway train. As the tram approaches through what would otherwise be a quiet western town, the tram keeps traversing on its route forward, and as it does, the runaway train is barreling down the tracks right at it. And as Universal does with their signature edge-of-your-seat situations, just as you think the inevitable will happen, the train stops just in time, missing the tram, and crisis averted. This attraction, along with the tram route, was closed down in 1985. However, the train still could be seen on the tracks sitting dormant many years after it closed down, and it would also be seen in a couple of other locations acting as a prop. Steven Spielberg's film Jaws, a thriller of a menacing shark wreaking havoc on a small beach town, entered theaters in 1975. With its huge success and popularity, on April 10, 1976, Jaws made its way onto the tram tour. Although this time around, it would be menacing tram tour guests as the tram passes by what is perceived to be a quiet small fishing village before the great white shark bursts out of the water. A fun fact about this small fishing village, it also sat in and doubled as Cabot's Cove in part of the hit TV show Murder, She Wrote, starring Angela Lansbury. Although Universal's tram tour was a famous staple to the park's history, it didn't stop there. Apart from attractions along the tour route, Universal's offerings also included various shows throughout the years. The various shows provided in-depth looks behind the curtain. Guests would have a chance to partake in some real behind-the-scenes action in some shows, and others, guests to the park could sit back, relax, and take in a show with live actors, stuntmen, and women.
Good evening. Welcome to Universal Studios, where you learn Hollywood secrets.
The Universal Studios Tour News. Universal Studios Hollywood. Visitors at the world's largest movie studio experience thrills and chills. Rumormongers are not all wet. Rampaging floodwaters rage on Universal's backlot. Thrill seekers return. Crowds converge to see what's new in movies and TV. Take the Universal Studios tour. Every day it's making news, and you can be part of it.
It was coming up on the 1980s, and Universal was about to get a couple of new stunt shows. Long before our next stunt show debuted, smaller variations of it appeared in other locations of the park, and to say it was a wild show would be an understatement. As it would evolve, so would its wild nature and theme. Add a couple more wilds, and you get the Wild, Wild, Wild West Stunt Show, which debuted in 1980. This was a live-action Western stunt show that incorporated a combination of live Western-style stunts, scripted comedic routines, and pyrotechnics. The show, which was located on the upper lot, also had some Western-style theming right outside the attraction's entrance.
At last, a little peace and quiet.
The show was a big hit with park guests, and it was duplicated at Universal Studios Florida in 1991, a year after that park had opened. The Hollywood version would close in 2002, and it would eventually become a space called Universal Plaza. In 1984, the A-Team live action stunt show opened.
At Universal Studios, you can have a whole day of fun.
And see how movies are made. And now you can see the new A-Team live action show with awesome explosions, incredible motorcycle crashes, and great car stunts.
Universal's new live attraction, based on the Stephen J. Cannell hit series, The A-Team live action show.
It's only part of the new magic at Universal Studios. Be there!
It was based on the hit TV show The A-Team. It featured various live stunts and effects.
live-action show. My name is Ralph Baker, and I'm dressed as Space, a member of the A-Team. I, along with this team of stunt performers, will be playing some of the other roles made famous by the A-Team television show. Ladies and gentlemen, the A-Team Live Action Show!
It was, however, short-lived, and it would only be a couple of years later till it was replaced by the Miami Vice Action Spectacular. Similar in fashion to the A-Team show, the new Miami Vice stunt show would be based on the hit TV show Miami Vice. It would also incorporate live-action stunts and effects. The Miami Vice Stunt Spectacular lasted 8 years and closed to make way for the Waterworld live stunt show, which debuted on October 21st, 1995.
The fast-paced live-action extravaganza that thrills audiences today began with the construction of a Caribbean island in a 750,000-gallon lagoon. But the emphasis of this $5 million attraction is on action and a high-tech world of special effects. It takes weeks of practice before actors perform these dangerous feats in the show. Stunt coordinator Alex Plasher instructs the actors on mastering the many stunts.
Wider, so when you're coming down, you're reaching down for it rather than it maybe being quite so fast.
Each stunt must be performed again and again with precision and safety.
They have to make sure that nobody gets hurt as we do in the film, but this has to be repeated 8 times, 10 times a day.
Putting the elements together requires attention to detail.
All our guns are equipped with a radio transmitter inside, and we press a button on the guns, and it goes up to our technical director up in the booth. He fires the pyro and the sound effects, and it makes it look as though we've caused the explosion.
If you're not quick, you can miss something, and in fact, we've designed the show so if you're seated in different places, so every time the audience comes back to see us again, they'll get a whole new entertainment experience.
Late word just in. The path of destruction continues east, causing thousands to flee their homes. Police admit that they are powerless to stop the enraged beast. Military units are rushing to the scene. The beast was last sighted near the 200 block of Old Fulton Avenue.
A new resident was about to make its way back to the tram route. On June 14, 1986, King Kong, also known as the King Kong Encounter, debuted in a new soundstage that housed both the 7-ton, 30-foot-tall animatronic Kong, along with a recreation of New York City streets in despair, as guests come face to face with King Kong himself. At the time, the Kong animatronic was known to be one of the largest complex animatronics. The special effects, combined with news reports throughout, put tram tour riders right in the heart of the destruction caused by the giant ape.
and this time, he wins. Starts June 20th.
Disney Imagineer Bob Gurr, known for designing some of Disney's most iconic attractions, was enlisted to design the giant animatronic Kong, right down to implementing the infamous banana breath.
After the engineering drawings are made, we make this 1/12 size working model to demonstrate all of the motions of the figures.
A new soundstage had to be built to contain Kong and his large-as-life surrounding. At 26,000 square feet, it may be the largest in the world. Because of the visitors' proximity to the set, the New York street scene had to be recreated in lifelike detail. With the aid of an army of workers, a microcosm of New York City began to arise. An exact duplicate of the finished attraction was also an essential element.
This is a 1/24 scale model of the King Kong attraction, which we built so we can show the people who are constructing all the various parts, whether it be the elevated train car or the track or those facades beyond me here, exactly what we want in 3 dimensions. The other good thing about it is it helps us be able to get down there and look from the point of view of the audience, exactly what the audience is going to see, so we can design the show and really live the show right now before it's completely built.
Meanwhile, safety tests were conducted on other aspects of the show, such as the fires caused by a rampaging King Kong. King Kong, which began as a 1-foot-tall clay model, became the world's largest animated creature. He's capable of 29 separate computer-controlled functions. And he looks pretty scary, but he's really not a bad guy at all.
By the spring of 1989, the Tram Tour would once again see a major new attraction added to the tour route. And this one was about to shake things up. Earthquake, the big one, debuted complete with a brand new soundstage to house it. Stage 50, as it was called, was specifically built for the Earthquake attraction. It replaced the older Tower of London castle facades, which were built for the 1939 film of the same name, which starred Boris Karloff and Vincent Price. Incidentally, the Tower of London film would be Vincent Price's first horror film debut. The attraction simulates the destruction and mayhem of an 8.3 on the Richter scale earthquake, with highly advanced special effects, everything from an overhead street collapse to a train derailment, and water rushing into and flooding the subway station are all part of what makes this attraction one of the most popular rides on the tram route. The attraction uses 60,000 gallons of water. The water is recycled and then reused for the next group of tram guests that make their way through. Once the attraction concludes, it all resets itself automatically within seconds to prepare itself for the next tram full of guests. The attraction was also featured in several films, one of them being Beverly Hills Cop 3, where it can be seen in the film as a fictitious ride called Alien Attack within the fictitious Wonderworld theme park.
The attraction was designed to reproduce in detail the effects of a killer quake. Genuine full-size subway cars simulate the train crash at 40 miles per hour. And the runaway truck is a 2,000-pound, 26 feet long big rig.
Hey guys, it's wonderful. It looks great. All right, you did a wonderful job.
Prior to the arrival of the 1990s, Universal's lower lot was only accessible to park guests by the Tram Tour, as most of the lower lot was part of the studio's sound stages and backlot, as it always had been. The tram would make its way to the lower lot, and guests on the tram would see dressing rooms of the stars and some special effects demonstrations as well. All that would start to change in 1991 as Universal was expanding their offerings to park guests. The lower lot was soon to be hosting several new attractions not on the tram tour route. This meant that park guests would need a way to access the lower lot outside of the tram tour. To accomplish this, Universal built what was called the Starway. The Starway consisted of several escalators that took park guests to and from the upper and lower lots, essentially giving access to both levels of the park for guests to explore. Up until this point in Universal's history, most of Universal Studios' attractions were featured along the tram tour route, and attractions along the way would come and go, with some staying longer than others. Classic attractions on the tram route, such as the Runaway Train and Avalanche Ice Tunnel, have come and gone to make way for some of those new attractions, with the Avalanche Tunnel becoming Fast and Furious Supercharged, which opened on June 25, 2015, and closed on March 10, 2025. And although attractions like Battlestar Galactica and King Kong Encounter featured audio animatronics and special effects, they were still on the tram tour route, and it wasn't until the E.T. Adventure opened in 1991, making it the first standalone dark ride to open at Universal outside of the tram tour. What made this standalone attraction a dark ride was that it utilized its own ride vehicles specifically designed to be implemented inside its own show building, compared to the previous attractions where the tram vehicles were utilized to travel through the various attractions and experiences. Riders of E.T. would board bikes suspended from the ceiling on a platform, and guests would then traverse the world of E.T. from above, looking down onto the show scenes inspired from the film, all the while trying to save E.T.'s home planet. Riders are met with a colorful array of show scenes once they arrive on E.T.'s home planet, making this a fun family attraction.
I'm Steven Spielberg, and welcome to the E.T. Adventure. E.T., as you know, was marooned here on Earth 3 million light years from home, and now he needs your help.
It was around this time where the Universal Studios production lot would continue to incorporate more standalone attractions, and Universal Studios, the theme park, was now expanding into the future, adding more and more rides and attractions moving forward. As mentioned earlier, Battlestar Galactica was an attraction the tram tour drove through. In 1992, it had closed. The area to which the Battlestar Galactica building once stood was raised to make way for Back to the Future the Ride, which opened in 1993, and later closed to make way for the Simpsons ride that opened in 2008. Both the Back to the Future and Simpson rides were standalone simulator attractions that were not on the tram tour route like its predecessor, Battlestar Galactica, was. The Back to the Future ride implemented 2 huge OmniMax dome screens with 12 DeLorean cars per screen, making a total of 24 ride vehicles, all in sync with the film as they moved throughout the ride. This would all take place in Doc Emmett L. Brown's Institute of Future Technology, and just like in the Back to the Future films, Doc was working on his latest invention. This time, it would be an 8-passenger DeLorean, which guests visiting the Institute would be briefed on their mission. The park's creative team, led by Steven Spielberg's idea and vision to build such a ride, also helped push forward the planning of Universal Studios Florida, which at the time was on hold.
I thought that this was one ride that we couldn't let get away. I mean, it has the most interactive opportunities imaginable. We actually place the people in a DeLorean, and we send them shooting 25 years into the future and then countless years into the past. It was a natural ride, I thought.
We wanted to take our guests inside the motion picture screen and let them experience what it feels like to ride in Doc Brown's car through time. To do that, we combined the latest technology in flight simulators, hydraulics, pneumatics, control systems with live effects like wind and fog, gave them vibration like they've never felt before, took all of that and combined it with a spectacular motion picture film, the largest image available in the industry.
The power of special effects to take you into an alternate reality, this amazing world of different places in time, different places in space, past, present, and future, and do that very kinetically, very viscerally, to where in 4 minutes you are completely thrown into another level of experience.
I'm gonna take a little joyride. Hasta la bye-bye!
On September 3rd, 2007, Back to the Future, The Ride, had closed with a special countdown event held by Doc Brown actor Christopher Lloyd and writer-producer of the Back to the Future films, Bob Gale. After Back to the Future's final ride, The Simpsons ride opened on May 19, 2008, utilizing a similar ride experience as the Back to the Future ride. However, the theming was greatly changed to the Simpsons brand, along with the ride vehicles as well, with a new Simpsons storyline. 1993 also saw Universal Studios expand with a brand new entertainment district and complex called City Walk, opening in May of that year. City Walk featured a collection of dining, shopping, and entertainment venues. Although City Walk wasn't inside the Universal Studios gates, it was directly outside of them, and the new parking garage structures allowed guests to park and enter City Walk to get to the Universal Studios park entrance. John Jerde was the architect who built the City Walk complex. He's known for his high-end architecture and many popular experiences and malls. One of them, Horton Plaza, which was completed in 1985, has a similar design structure to the City Walk complex, and his signature look can be seen in both of these entities. As the 1990s moved forward, so did Universal Studios Hollywood. And like most theme parks, future progression, utilizing the latest of technologies, was always something that Universal strived for. And the next attraction did not fall short in that area, and in fact, would bring park guests an attraction experience of colossal proportions. June 21st, 1996 marked the day of the opening of Jurassic Park: The Ride. Jurassic Park the film was an enormous undertaking both in technology and story, and once again, Steven Spielberg was at the helm to bring the movie to life at the studios in a ride form, and with great detail. Riders board the attraction's boat and traverse through a dinosaur-lined waterway lagoon. As the ride progresses, things go wrong. The boat veers off course into a restricted area, only to plunge down an 83-foot waterfall drop. Universal would add more attractions as the 1990s moved along. In 1999, another Blockbuster attraction would open.
We are back again with the Terminator.
Yes!
T2 3D.
T2 3D Battle Across Time. This attraction could somewhat be seen as a mini-sequel to the film Terminator 2, which was released back on July 3, 1991. The cast reprised their roles in this theater-like 3D attraction with numerous special effects. Fun fact, the 12-minute movie scene in the attraction cost around $24 million, and it was said to be the most expensive film per minute ever made.
All the live guys understand that what we're doing ultimately interconnects with film. And likewise, all the film guys understand that this film doesn't exist on its own. It's going to be part of this live performance.
As the millennium approached, so did more attractions. One of them, The Mummy, debuted in the park on June 25, 2004. Universal Studios Florida also built the attraction in its park, which opened a month earlier. The Hollywood version replaced the E.T. Adventure, which closed down a year earlier in 2003. This would be the first roller coaster in the park at Universal Studios Hollywood, and it was an indoor coaster.
Revenge of the Mummy: The Ride opens June 25th at Universal Studios Hollywood.
As time moved forward into the 2000 decade, Universal Studios Hollywood would see several attractions close down, and in their place, new attractions would debut. As mentioned before, Back to the Future: The Ride would close, and The Simpsons ride replaced it in 2008. Lucy, a tribute, a park staple from the early 1990s, which featured a museum-type dedication that celebrated the late Lucille Ball and her beloved TV show I Love Lucy, was closed in early 2008 as well. On July 1st, 2010, Universal's Tram Tour added a new attraction along its route. King Kong 360 was the attraction, and would mark the second time the giant Kong would make an appearance within the tour. This new attraction was housed in a brand new show building in which the tram would travel through. Big screens on both sides of the tram itself allowed guests to immerse themselves within the action. The other Kong attraction, King Kong Encounter, which had been a staple attraction since it debuted in 1986, was unfortunately destroyed in a backlot fire back in 2008. Within 2 years, in 2010, Kong reigned king and once again joined the tram tour. Another notable Blockbuster attraction would arrive in 2012. Transformers the Ride opened on May 24th, 2012. The Transformers attraction was yet another high-tech 3D dark ride where guests could board vehicles and traverse through highly detailed screens and practical sets. To make way for Transformers on the lower lot, 2 other attractions were closed, Backdraft and the Special Effects Sound Stages, which closed down in 2010. Both Backdraft and the Special Effects Sound Stages were beloved attractions that showed guests how special effects were done in Hollywood films. They were also park staples from the early 1990s.
What is a backdraft? Well, the technical explanation is a fire that has burned out all the oxygen in a room.
In late 2012, it was announced that T2 3D, Battle Across Time, would close down to make way for a new attraction. That attraction, Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, would open on April 12, 2014. The attraction was based on the popular Minions movie. Unlike the T2 attraction, the Minions attraction also included their own Minion Land, and included a portion named Super Silly Funland. In 2014, an iconic soundstage that housed a very iconic film was demolished. It was Stage 28, the Phantom of the Opera soundstage as it was known. It was built in Universal's early years back in 1924 to house the silent film Phantom of the Opera, which was released in 1925. Although it wasn't Universal's oldest soundstage, it was, however, the first soundstage that was built specifically for a movie from concrete and with a unique design built to house the enormous Paris Opera House set seen in the film. The set was actually built into the walls of the soundstage, and its construction back in 1924 attributed to its longevity over the many decades, reaching almost a century. Although it had a solid construction, it is without a doubt that Universal had to upkeep the set and soundstage over the years to keep it resilient. Throughout its long life, the soundstage would also be used in various films and even music videos. However, it was eventually torn down in 2014, marking an end of an era for the Phantom stage. Knowing the importance of the set, Universal sought out to preserve the actual set pieces and put it into storage for safekeeping. On March 28, 2015, Universal Studios Hollywood would debut Springfield. Springfield would consist of Simpsons-themed facades housing various dining options, along with some novelty interactions incorporated to the area, and was built near the Simpsons ride, which had opened years earlier in 2008. On April 7, 2016, Universal Studios Hollywood was proud to debut the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. With the big success of the movie franchise, and its popularity it had when it debuted at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure in 2010, it was only a matter of time until Hollywood would have its very own version. Guests could experience Harry Potter's world in all of its glory on the upper lot. The Wizarding World took over the area of the Gibson Amphitheater, which closed in 2013 to make way for the construction of the new Potterland. On June 15, 2018, the DreamWorks Theater had opened, the theater was themed to the animation and characters of the DreamWorks films. In order to make way for it, Shrek 4D would close down after 14 years of operation. By this time in Universal Studios film history, a familiar IP, intellectual property, had begun to resurface again. A new take on an older, extremely popular Universal film, Jurassic Park, was back on the big screen, although this time it had a new story and a new name, Jurassic World. The original Jurassic World film debuted in 2015 with amazing success as one of the highest-grossing films of all time. In 1993, the Jurassic Park movie opened to very similar success, and in fact, Steven Spielberg had a concept for a Jurassic Park-type ride prior to even filming the movie based on the novel of the same name. The Jurassic Park River Adventure, which debuted back in 1996, was a huge success with park guests. It was featured on the lower lot, which once housed the tram station for the tram tour. In 2018, which happened to be the 25th anniversary of the original Jurassic Park film, Universal announced its plans for a retheme of the Jurassic Park ride based on the new Jurassic World films. The area in which the ride sits would also be rethemed to Jurassic World. The new retheme of the ride updated and upgraded the previous Jurassic Park version, adding a whole new entrance towards the beginning of the ride, with many changes along the way, and a whole new ride ending before riders take the same 83-foot plunge into the waters below, as they did in the previous Jurassic Park ride version. This new rethemed version of the ride would open to park guests on July 12, 2019. The Secret Life of Pets animated film was a big box office hit, and on April 16, 2021, The Secret Life of Pets Off the Leash attraction opened on the upper lot in the former space where the Globe Theater once stood. This dark ride attraction allowed riders to navigate through this entertaining ride, and along the way, they would be met by many of the characters from within the animated feature film. One of Universal Studios' next big attractions would come in form of a new land area themed on a popular gaming console. On February 17, 2023, the studios opened a new land, and this time it was based off of some beloved video games. The land, Super Nintendo World, opened with great praise. Nintendo's gaming itself had spanned across many decades of gaming fans. This land immersed guests into a video game adventure complete with Mario and all his pals within the Nintendo universe. In order to make way for the Nintendo land down on the lower lot, several sound stages would be torn down. New state-of-the-art sound stages were also being added on Universal's property in other areas. It was also in 2023 that Universal Studios Hollywood announced that a new attraction would be built. Based on the Fast and Furious movie franchise, Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift is set to debut in 2026, marking Universal Studios Hollywood's first high-speed roller coaster at the park. This highly anticipated coaster will span over a vast area of hillside and even soar over across Universal's pedestrian stairway that connects both the upper and lower lots. Like many theme parks, Universal Studios Hollywood is constantly evolving, implementing new attractions, updating older ones, and even continuing to feature some beloved classic attractions. Its classic tram tour, which has run for many decades, is a great way to showcase building facades and sets from various films, both current and even some from the past, like the iconic Psycho House from the classic movie Psycho. Apart from all this, Universal Studios Hollywood also holds annual events within the park, like the very popular Halloween Horror Nights, also known as HHN, which has been an annual event for many years. Universal Studios creates some of the most thrilling Halloween-themed houses for guests to traverse through if you dare. Grinchmas is another beloved event held in the winter months, based on Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. There are many other events that grace Universal's theme park throughout the years, and Universal is always looking towards the future to bring park guests fun, entertaining, and immersive events. The park also has a really good variety of theme shopping and dining options, both in the park and in City Walk as well. Universal has established a successful movie studio coupled with a very popular studio tour in Hollywood. And with its ongoing expansion within its own park, adding more rides, attractions, and entertainment offerings, Universal made the decision to open a sister park in another market which catered to vacation tourists. On June 7, 1990, Universal Studios Florida opened in Orlando, Florida. The Florida park focused on more standalone rides and attractions. However, it too featured a tram tour in its early years. And since the Florida park's debut, Universal has opened up several more parks around the world. Universal Studios Hollywood will continue to grow and develop as the years progress. And much like the film studios have developed and evolved from way back when Carl Laemmle first opened the Universal Studios on March 15, 1915, the park will continue to expand in its array of entertainment offerings and high-tech, world-class attractions. So the next time you visit Universal Studios Hollywood, know that you're standing on historic grounds where movie magic and stars of the cinema have once stood and continue to stand before you. And the stories of yesteryear can forever be told when you indulge in the history of Universal Studios Hollywood.